Greetings, my fellow South African brothers and sisters. Making an informed decision about which political party to support in the upcoming election is crucial for shaping the future of our country. It is very important to ensure that you make the best choice for yourself and for your community by taking time and reflecting on your personal values. Take the time to reflect on your own values, beliefs, and aspirations for the country. Consider which party's visions align most closely with your vision for a better South Africa. Remember that your vote is a powerful expression of your values and principles. Watch these clips to enhance your decision-making process.
We're definitely going to be the number one political party after the 30th of May. If we're not number one, we're going to be number two. The young people, particularly those of you who are organized in SASCO, ANC, clique, who were there before, but we always subside to logic. We do not just follow things as they are. Your sole reason not to vote for the ANC is just to read their manifesto. They are saying they're going to create 2.2 million jobs in the next 5 years when there's 11 million unemployed people. So only two out of the 10 unemployed people are going to be given jobs. That is their plan, which is not going to materialize in any way. So if you still are going to vote for the ANC, you are just voting for joblessness and hopelessness and no direction. There's nothing that is going to happen under these people. The less said about this multi-party charter, the better. Because these are not political parties. They are puppets of the Oppenheimers. All of them. And you know what are the interests of the Oppenheimers? They want to keep the status quo. In the genealogy of the Oppenheimers is Cecil John Rhodes, who ravaged this country. The wealth of the Oppenheimers came through the rape, through the savaging of our country. We as a generation will never allow, they must never allow that to happen. Let's appreciate a simple thing that those of you even from the different political parties, politics is not like football where you support Kaizer Chiefs even when it's losing games every day. We must always listen to logic, and the logic comes from the economic freedom fighters that let's make this 2024 to be our 1994. Amanda!
Thank you. Over to you, Sarah.
Julius Malema and the freedom fighters, the economic freedom fighters in South Africa, they're not going away. They are coming to power. One way or the other, you're going to see the rise of the black man and the black woman on the continent and in the diaspora. This is our time. You can't stop it. And I'm not just talking to the enemy in white skin, I'm talking to you Negroes. You sellouts, you traitors who spend your days dreaming about seeing your own people destroyed. Imagine a mentality like that, man. People if working night and day to undermine other black people whose only aspiration is to see the total liberation of our people. But with your small peanut mind, your small peanut head, you think that you are to be in control of everything and everyone. Foolish people.
One is that the EFF is going to win elections, and the commander-in-chief of the EFF will be commander-in-chief of the armed forces in South Africa, head of state and president. So my role has already been clarified. So the commander-in-chief, Julius Malema, will be president after the 29th of May. But if we do not get a decisive majority, I think they're going to now get this clearly for the first time. There's not a single Oppenheimer-funded political party which will be government of South Africa. Not one. There will never be any Oppenheimer puppet in any national or provincial government of South Africa. It will never happen. So whatever arrangement that will culminate in the deliberations, there won't be any Oppenheimer puppet which is going to come anywhere close to the control of our economy, of our resources. We're not some sub-imperialist puppets. We're not children. We're not Nelson Mandela and all those people who negotiated CODESA then. We are clear of what's happening in this country. We know who are our primary enemies. And that continues to be the white, racist, capitalist establishment, which is trying to take over power through these puppet parties. They will never enter. It will never happen. But there is no instability in any of the municipalities where the EFF is in government. We're responsible for key critical departments in Nelson Mandela, electricity plus infrastructure, but in the city of Johannesburg, we're responsible for community health and social development, but also we're responsible for public safety as well. So if you want to know that there is no unstable government in Johannesburg, go and skip robots there. You will see that the police that are under the guidance of the EFF will take you to prison. We're very decisive and much more extended the roles of public safety far beyond the just traffic management to now fighting crime much more directly by establishing units that are looking into crime fighting in the city of Johannesburg. In the city of Ekurhuleni, we have been leading a stable government. None of our members of the mayoral committees in Mohale City, in Metsimaholo, a local municipality in Western District, all of them have been firm in terms of principle. And we, of course, will have these elements who will come and say they want to challenge the authority of the EFF because they want to drag them into corrupt activities. And whenever we refuse, they want to take out of government. But otherwise, it's so far so good. We're demonstrating our capacity as the EFF. Deployee of the Student Command to the SRC here, that he draws a very clear and cogent relationship between neoliberalism and joblessness in South Africa since the adoption of GEAR, something which the other guy from SASCO failed to draw. He then says it's now a responsibility of all opposition parties who are neoliberal, which the ANC is the most neoliberal organization in the Southern Hemisphere. So it's one of the things that we have to then deal with, that we have to deliberalize South Africa's economy. We need to do something called inward industrialization, where we produce the goods and services and products that we consume on a daily basis, because we import virtually everything, meaning that we're creating jobs for manufacturers and assemblers elsewhere, whilst there is huge capacity, even from a fiscal point of view, where we can produce our own goods and services, and then we utilize first the buying capacity of the state to make those industries viable, and then we create millions of jobs. It can be from the smallest thing, toilet paper, toothpick, matchstick, to the most complex of things of shipbuilding even, and vehicles. Just how many cars does the state own? If we're saying that South African government is going to buy only state-owned, South African-made cars, we can create millions of jobs, because the government garage is far much bigger than any other garage that you can ever think of. So those are the deliberalization components of moving away from neoliberalism, which we must look into. And thanks science about climate change is only being applied and imposed on the African continent, where they say to us that leave coal, leave natural gases, but bring it to us so that we can continue to industrialize and grow our economies. If we're going to stop coal, it must be stopped from being exported as well. Why is it that the coal is only stopped when it's supposed to give us electricity, which in a modern industrial world is essential for basic livelihoods? We are going to investigate and implement the clean coal technologies which the Chinese government is working on for majority of their new power stations now. But coal will continue to be the primary source of energy in South Africa, so that we've got dependable supply of electricity, one. Two, we're going to convert the liquefied natural gases into electricity, so that we electrify not only South Africa, but the entire subcontinent. We need electricity in the entire continent, and we have to optimally utilize all our natural resources to give electricity for our people, because we can't have sustainable livelihoods without the optimal usage of our natural resources. We'll continue to do so. We're not going to be misled by imperialists anyway. We'll never do that.
Thank you so much.
It has to be located within the broader framework of expanding the fiscal capacity of the state, the money which government collects in order to provide basic services for all. So to increase the allocation that you give to higher education, it means that you must increase the revenue that you collect from the economy, from society, so that it's far much bigger to allocate much more adequately. And we have made several illustrations that the revenue collection in South Africa has not been significantly increasing because the economy in the past 12 years has grown at average 0.8%, which is no growth at all, because when you count that against population growth, it is drowned into permanent insignificance. So what has to be purposefully done, one is to grow the economy so that the revenue base is expanded. Two, you need to optimally collect the revenue from particularly the extractive industries, because majority of the companies that are playing roles in the mining sector are not paying taxes in South Africa. They always bloat their expenses so that they can avoid taxes. Then we need to then optimally collect the revenue, but also there is sensible interest from prescribed assets. Like the government employees pension fund has got upward of 2 trillion rands, which is being invested in the listed stocks. And if we can have a discussion, it is sensible, particularly for the children of public representatives and public servants, to be financed through prescribed assets that can come from the government employees pension fund, to have quality education for everyone. And that is what we have to do to expand the pie as to what should happen. But at the center of what should happen with higher education, by the way, Prof, is the quantitative and qualitative expansion of the post-secondary education and training space. Because currently the secondary space is exits upward of 1 million children every year, whether they exit via grade 10, grade 11, but the spaces that are practically available year on year always hover below 250 and 300,000. And what then happens to the rest of the 700,000? They then join the army of the unemployed, who then get trapped in drugs and crime and in a vicious circle that is not sustainable. So we need to have to resolve the revenue collection streams, have optimal resources available, and then we then get to qualitatively and quantitatively expand the higher education space so that anyone, any children want, or any child wants to go to get a degree, must be able to get that particular degree and later on get jobs that are sustainable to look after themselves. That is what we think should happen in relation to higher education. Thank you very much. Yes, it has received maximum attention, particularly in relation to the wastewater treatment process. That is where we give a far much more substantial perspective as to what do we do with the 1,200 wastewater treatment plants which were last touched 1994. Majority of the times, all these people who have been municipalities have never paid attention to wastewater treatment processes of the water that comes from household use and industries. That is what we're going to focus on. The one climate change that we're not going to be duped into focusing on is the one that says that we must switch off electricity because we want to save the climate. And these people who are saying we must switch off electricity are taking our coal to go and produce electricity in America and Europe and everywhere else where they come from. That we're not going to do. We're going to optimally utilize our natural resources to have electricity here. We will deal with mitigating factors. There are lots of technological innovations, including from the CSIRR, like, which is the South African Research Institute, which then deals with how do we mitigate the danger of climate change that will come out of fossil fuels, out of liquefied natural gas when you're converting it into electricity. We will look into that science, not this neo-colonial imperialist imposition of climate change agenda, which we'll never agree with. That is what we stand on as the EFF, and we're firm on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chivambu.
Moderators of this debate, and want to greet the Student Representative Council, which is led by the EFF Students Command here in the District of It's part of the more than 90% Students Representative Councils in South Africa, which are led by the Student Command, but also Want to, of course, pay tribute to University of Fort Hare, which has got the most outstanding alumni. Want to specifically outline and mention Robert Mangaliso Subukwe, Chris Hani, and Gavin Mbeki. Those are the people who got proper degrees from this university. They never went to a counter and they never required service of a cashier to get a degree. And thanks, Professor Buhlungu, for protecting this institution, because it's one of the most important things. We must never allow a situation where anyone purchases degrees from this institution, like the premier of this province tried to do. Now, the main focus of the EFF manifesto is one, on land, because our people are landless, is jobs, is stopping load shedding. But more importantly, is the ability to dynamically utilize South Africa's fiscal resources, like the budget, to drive industrial expansion and economic development and infrastructure in a way that is going to create millions of jobs for our people. But at the center of that, will be building state capacity such that the state is able to perform its own functions and not be a contracting and tendering state, because thus far, a tendering state has led to high levels of corruption, but also even political killings, including the one that occurred in this university. So that is the agenda that the Economic Freedom Fighters is up to in terms of what we stand for. And we are ready to take over the government of South Africa to give it the meaning that it requires.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you very much.
In the country.
Look, these two distinct issues which a lot of people confuse about the EFF's Pan-Africanism and a policy to integrate the entire African continent. There will never be sustainable economic prosperity for the entire continent if it is not integrated. That question couldn't be resolved in 1963 when the OAU was formed. And as a generation, we have to resolve that question. That what colonialism did was to subdivide us into small and viable states that are unable to develop by themselves. So we are purposefully going to integrate the infrastructure, rail infrastructure, electricity infrastructure, water systems, so that the entire African continent collectively prosper. When Japan was realizing economic growth after the Second World War, it played a central role in the economic development of South Korea. It played a central role as well in the economic development of the People's Republic of China. Check what Deng Xiaoping did in the early periods of opening up. Learned a lot of lessons from what the Japanese were doing. And there was collective development of the entire Asia. It was, by the way, that region, that section of the world was treated and considered in the same way the African continent is considered. Of lazy people, of dark continent, of a hopeless people who do not have any form of potential prosperity. It's foolhardy, it's actually foolishness to could think that we're going to pursue the economic expansion of South Africa only without the collective effort that seeks to develop the entire continent. And to achieve that, you need the free movement of goods and people. The Africa Free Trade, Continental Free Trade Era deals with that aspect far much more clearly. And that is the direction that we must take, all of us. Don't listen to anyone else who tells you anything else, because it will never happen. It's like this thing of the ANC of saying they're going to create 2.2 million jobs when there's 11 million people who are unemployed. We won't be able to deal with unemployment unless if we collectively put our resources as the African continent. But then the second issue is, how do you deal with migration? What do you do to migrants, whether they came here for socio-economic reasons, for whatever reason? Do you treat them like animals? Do you refuse them access to primary basic health care? Do you refuse them basic burial rights, such that those trucks that are carrying goods and people and live human beings are also carrying carcasses of people who have died in the informal settlements? We can't be that inhuman. We need to have a progressive internationalism and Pan-Africanism that, one, leads to common economic prosperity and protects particularly African immigrants here in South Africa. That is our position.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for watching. As you reflect on your decision about who to vote for, please consider the clips we have shared. They offer valuable insights into the upcoming elections. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more informative content like this in the future. Your support means a lot to us. I thank you and take care.